Welcome into Dores Unlocked. I'm Aiden here in the studio with Errington Truesdale and Zach Phillip here to talk another week of Vanderbilt sports. We'll start with football. Vanderbilt fell 27-24 to Texas on the gridiron of First Bank Stadium this weekend. It was a pretty encouraging performance. I think we all agree that Vanderbilt could have played a little bit better, but also they hung around with another top 5 team, and I think that that's super encouraging. We're going to talk defense, we're going to talk offense. I'll kick it to Errington for a little defensive analysis.
Yeah, so fellas, I'm going to implement a well, better, learn model to give a comprehensive outlook on the Dores defensive performance. So starting with the well, something they did very well this game was turnover creation. I mean, anytime that you can come out and, well, we've seen just from early on in the season that they've done a great job on pressures, just getting their hands up. Guys like Langston Patterson this past game ended up in the Martel Height pick. And then when you can come out in a game and the number 5 team in the country, the first offensive drive, you stop them, you defer, you stop them, and you go punch them in the mouth. That's a great tone setter and a great way to show your team, hey, guys, we can play and we can hang with the best of them, which leads me into my next point of things we did well, which is red zone efficiency. I mean, there were times where Texas was trudging up and down the field, and I was like, okay, this is going to get out of hand. Yeah. But it was like every time it was a bend but don't break style, and they didn't break, so that kind of kept the game manageable. I think the offense could have maybe punched it in a little more, helped the defense out. And then another thing we did well was sack production, 4 sacks, guys like Nick Rinaldi, Corday Sidner winning his one-on-ones. These are just big things that we haven't seen in the past, and I'm glad the team is doing well. And my last shout-out for the well is Brandon Fontenette. It's a guy who's been all over the field. I think he had 8.5 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, a sack, the pass deflection. So he is all over the place, and I'm excited just to see his progression just as time continues to go. This takes me into better. Things we can do better is third down defense. Usually, I think Vandy holds their opponents to 45%, but Texas was 60%. We have to be a lot better on third down, getting teams off the field, because that allows the ball to get back in the hands of our offense and allows us to win time of possession. Another thing we need to do, capping explosive plays. I know we had at least 10-plus explosive plays, and when we allow that to happen, we're just allowing their athletes to exploit our athletes. So that's something we can show up as well. And then tackling in space. There were times where Contravion Wisner and Jaden Blue were kind of breaking free. We have to be able to break down. Open field tackling is a hard thing to do, but if we can kind of get on top of these things, I think that'll give us better outcomes in games to come. And then just things we learned. This is a very gritty, resilient team. When they had the 17 unanswered, I'm like, okay, this is getting out of hand. But we quickly saw that this team kept fighting, kept making Texas punt the ball, getting sacks to take them out of field goal range, and this was huge. Ultimately allowed us to take it down to a 1-possession game. And I was telling Zach earlier, it was a promising loss, and I'll kind of let him get into some of the offense.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The defense did its job. The offense struggled. The defense held Texas to 6 points in the second half. They needed the offense to score just a couple touchdowns to win that game. Some early 3-and-outs in the second half for Pavia and the rest of the offense. Pavia with what I would consider his worst game of the season. 2 interceptions. One was a tipped pass, the other on a difficult 4th down call that was a controversial call that the coaches made. We may get into that later. Cedric Alexander, only 10 carries. Stowers, largely uninvolved. It kind of looked like a different Vanderbilt offense, just not as creative. I saw a lot of those read options. Diego Pavia wasn't exactly reading. He was just taking it himself. Not much option there for just a couple yards each time, particularly in the red zone. And as Errington said earlier, the red zone defense did a nice job, but the red zone offense also has to do a good job in these games where there's not a lot of possessions per team. With the time of possession battle we're playing, red zone is so key that the offense has got to do better there. Time of possession, we did lose 31-29, which is, we know, a hallmark of this Vanderbilt team to win time of possession. And lastly, third down, 3 of 12, just 25%. That's the biggest difference I see from previous games, is the difference on third down. We've been so efficient all year, and those we know are the most critical plays in football games, and we just weren't successful this week.
Yeah, and I think what you saw in this game is not necessarily that Vanderbilt got away from all the things that worked for it, and it kind of did, but it was because Texas just has an imposing defense. This is a strong and athletic defense. It's the best defense Vanderbilt's gone up against, might be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the country, and Vanderbilt was a little bit outmatched at the line. You saw it with a lot of these runs that you're used to seeing Cedric Alexander plow forward for 4 yards, and instead it was 2. You're used to seeing Diego Pavia find a seam in the defense, and instead he kind of gets blocked up in the middle, and you put yourself in these 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8s that become 3rd and 6s that are not the bread and butter of this Vanderbilt offense. You see where Vanderbilt excels is in these 3rd and 1s where you get Junior Sherrill in motion, and you get Cedric Alexander rolling out, or you get Newberry running like a 2-and-out. Those are the type of things that Vanderbilt excels on, and it got away from putting itself in position to convert on third down.
Speaking of that motion, I want to talk about that 4th down play where, Errington could probably take us through it a little bit better. It was a really confusing play, 4th and 1. All the Vandy offense starts looking over the sideline, acting like the headset's not working. All of a sudden, Stowers runs under center, hands it off to Junior Sherrill on a little reverse, and he comes running up the sideline. It was a beautiful play, got some 15 yards on it, and it gets called back for an illegal formation. Take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so the thing with that play is Quincy Skinner, his job, so what he did, he oversold the kind of acting show of the play, which is sometimes good, but ultimately your main job is to make sure that the play can be ran. So when I was watching the game on TV, these two individuals were actually at the game, but what I saw was when the ball was snapped, Q was looking at the sideline with his arms up, like just selling to the ref, like, hey, am I on, am I on? Which is cool, but when the ball is snapped, all shoulders must be parallel to the line of scrimmage because he was turned to the side. This was illegal formation. And it was a beautiful play call. I was surprised at home. I didn't know what they were going to do when I saw Eli Stowers motion under the court. I'm like, what's going on here? But it was a great play call, and it would have been a huge momentum boost. Unfortunately, it got called back, but I just want them to continue being aggressive and doing things like going forward on 4th down because you're going to need that type of stuff to win in the SEC.
Yeah, you do need that against Texas for sure. And the thing that I like the most about the play call, and it did unfortunately get called back, is that they ran a very similar play a couple weeks ago against Kentucky, and Eli Stowers ended up taking a QB sneak. It was a 4th and 1, and Eli Stowers took a QB sneak. So they ran almost the exact same play. Pavia got confused, looked to the sideline, and Eli Stowers walks up. He looks like he's going to snap it, and looks like he's going to QB sneak it, and instead hands it off to Sherrill. So it just showed you another dimension of Vanderbilt's offense.
But that's the type of creativity that I was hoping to see. It obviously worked. It was a great play outside of the illegal formation. That was a massive gain. That's the type of creativity, those trick plays, the Tim Beck, Jerry Kill stuff that you need to see against Texas. That's the kind of stuff we saw against Alcorn State, actually, that pass from Stowers to Spence, and a little bit of that against Alabama. That was the stuff I was really hoping that we would see from Vanderbilt's offense, that creativity, catch them off guard, but we just didn't see it. It was Cedric Alexander had 10 carries. All of them felt like they were up the middle. Pavia had so many keepers just up the middle, and the passing game actually wasn't so bad, but there just wasn't enough creativity to cause problems for that really good Texas defense.
Yeah, I don't think they were comfortable enough calling those plays because usually when we're calling those, we have good time of possession. We feel like we're in control of the game, but because Texas was kind of pushing us around in the time of possession game, I feel like they wanted to play it more conservative, which ended up hurting us in the long run.
Yeah, and it's tough because Vanderbilt's identity is controlling the clock, getting out to a good start, and it looked like it had done that with the interception, with Pavia's rushing touchdown to go up early, and then those 17 unanswered points. Vanderbilt's not going to excel at throwing the ball down the field. They're not going to take the top off any defense, save for maybe Alcorn State a couple times, especially not against Texas. So what you need is to have Texas zero in on that run game because they know that you want to run it, right? Like if you're up 14 points, you want to run the clock. You want to chew the clock. When you're not doing that, they know that you're not capable of chewing the clock. They know that you're not going to want to run it so much, and they can defend the pass, and it just makes everything more difficult on your offense.
Yeah, and also just the point to hit on this again with the lack of efficiency on 1st and 2nd down. That's something we've prided ourselves, Vanderbilt has prided itself in all season, is being so effective on 1st and 2nd down. They did not have that luxury and got themselves in a lot of 3rd and longs where Pavia had to throw the ball. Really quick, just to talk about Nate Johnson. I am a big advocate, or not advocate, but fan of Nate Johnson. He came in for a couple plays when Pavia twisted his ankle. The entire stadium was holding its breath, but Nate Johnson came in, had a nice rush. One scary throw, but one great throw to Stowers on 3rd and 10. So if he's our guy next year, potentially some good film on him there to give Vanderbilt fans a little bit of encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And with that, I think we're going to take a little look ahead against Auburn. Auburn picked up its first SEC win of the season with a 24-10 victory over Kentucky this past weekend. 3-5 on the year, 1-4 in the SEC. Pretty below average team. Vanderbilt has outperformed Auburn all season. I think all three of us would agree on that front, even if we've disagreed on some bowling projections and things like that earlier in the season. But this is an Auburn team that has a dominant ground attack with Jarquez Hunter, not the great passing game with Peyton Thorne under center, probably a below average SEC quarterback. But one question I have for you guys is Vanderbilt is a 7-point dog in this game. I understand that it's Jordan-Hare Stadium. I understand that it's a road game in the SEC and that's always difficult. But this is a 1-4 SEC, 3-5 overall team. This Auburn team has looked bad all season. So Do we think Auburn -7 is a fair line in this game?
That is
Ridiculous.
Because the only thing this Auburn squad has going for them is this past weekend, Jarquez Hunter, he's coming off a career game, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns.
That's absurd.
That is a monster game, and that's probably got the people up in Vegas kind of sweating a little bit. Oh, maybe Auburn's onto something. This team puts the ball on the ground a lot. I don't think their quarterback is the best. The offense runs through Jarquez Hunter, so if this Dores defense can hit Jarquez Hunter in the mouth early on, tackle in space, he's more of a one-cut back, downhill. He's not going to give you as much elusiveness. So this is the perfect back for Vandy to stonewall. And if we can hold him under 150 yards, I see us kind of rolling with this one.
Yeah, I think Errington's even too friendly on that. All they've got is this rushing attack. Peyton Thorne is a below-average SEC quarterback. This is a 3-5 team. The Vanderbilt Commodores are 5-3. Auburn hasn't been good at home. They haven't been able to put up points. Hugh Freeze has not been able to stop Diego Pavia. I love how the media is making such a big deal of this. It's so fun. I think Pavia is going to go in with the same confidence. If you weren't aware, New Mexico State crushed Auburn last year. Pavia's going to go in with the same confidence, do his thing. The Commodores are going to roll all over the Auburn Tigers.
Score prediction?
Man, a lot to a little. Give me Vandy by 14. Okay. 21 points on the other side of that line. That line is ridiculous.
Okay, cool.
As Jonah Barber would say, if you like money, bet on Vanderbilt's side of this game.
Score predictions, I'll go 21-10. Dores.
I think this ends up being a little more of a slugfest in terms of how close it is. I think Clark Lee said in his press conference today that this is another one of those games that you want the ball to be possessed as few times as possible. You want there to be 10 total possessions in this game. Auburn's going to look to chew the clock the same way Vanderbilt is. Similar identity of keeping it on the ground, not necessarily wanting to go deep. Auburn does have a few playmakers on the outside. It's more that their quarterback isn't the most accurate passer, and he can't do it with his legs the way Pavia can. But I think Vanderbilt is the better team, and I think that they eke out another victory to exceed the 500 mark in SEC, improve to 3-2 in SEC play, 6-3 overall, become bowl eligible with a 24-21 victory. Yeah, I mean that would be the bowl game, but I still feel like somehow Vanderbilt, the notion of old Vanderbilt is somehow getting into the minds of Vegas here. A 3-5 Auburn team that is pretty bad. All they have is this run game, and a 5-3 Commodores team that's hanging with everybody, doesn't get blown out. We haven't had a 7-point loss all year. We've had 3 losses by 4, 3, and 3. To think that we're going to lose by 7 to Auburn, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a relatively unfair line. With that, I do have another question that I wanted to pose you guys. Vanderbilt is going to be, now that Vanderbilt is +7 in this game, we can assume that Vanderbilt is going to be an underdog from here on out in its final 3 games. Does Vanderbilt make a bowl? Does it pull off one more upset to become bowl eligible? Yeah, I mean, I just said, I do think they're going to win. They're going to beat Auburn this week. The South Carolina game, a lot of fans are saying that's the one that Vanderbilt might win. I don't know about that. I think South Carolina's pretty good. That could be, double-digit underdogs even at home. Going into the Bayou into LSU, forget that. It's going to be tough. I know Errington agrees on that. That's a tough place to play football. And I will actually give fans some hope about the last game, rivalry week. Tennessee coming into Vandy. The team is going to... Don't say coming into Vandy because it's a home game for Tennessee. That's fair enough, but the team is going to get up like nothing seen before. Give me the energy of Alabama multiplied by the energy of Texas for that game. I could see Vanderbilt at least hanging close with Tennessee, but again, they'll be 14 to 20-point underdogs. Yeah. So to answer this question about the bowl game, I'm going to be watching very closely this weekend because I do think this game gives us the best chances because this is a team who cannot beat us vertically. And as we saw, Texas had pretty much 3 straight touchdowns just beating us deep. When people can out-athlete us, that's when they get the best of us. But Auburn does not have any excellent athletes as opposed to teams like South Carolina, guys like Nick Harbor, who if they just put him in, he's faster than anyone we have. Those are the teams that kind of, strike a little bit of fear in us. But I think Auburn, if we can pull this one off, we can then pick up some momentum, and I think we'll kind of carry that into the rest of the season. Tennessee, I still think that's a little bit steep. Nico, he's been inaccurate, but he can kind of beat us deep. They have Brew McCoy as well, so I do think this game gives us the best chances to become bowl eligible. To be honest with you, I think that this is the game that they win. I mean, we all just agreed on that, and this is the game they get bowl eligible. I think South Carolina is going to be a comfortable Vanderbilt win. I really do. I think Vanderbilt matches up well with South Carolina. I think that you saw what Vanderbilt could do against a quarterback in Jalen Milroe that could crush you with his legs, but can't really crush you deep. And Lenora Sellers is a microcosm of that. I mean, we'll talk about him next week, but Lenora Sellers cannot throw the ball downfield at all. And that's no disrespect to Lenore Sellers, but you just watch the tape and you'll see it. So you've got a quarterback that can't beat you deep, and that's Vanderbilt's biggest weakness, like you said. Vanderbilt was playing soft, and that's how Texas picked it apart in the dink and dunk game. You get those bubble screen, you get those short passes that become 5-6 yard gains because Vanderbilt is so afraid of the deep ball. Against Auburn and against South Carolina, you don't have to be afraid of the deep ball. So yes, I think Vanderbilt makes a bowl. I don't think that they win out. I think that they go 8-4, and I think that they either pull off a wild upset in the Bayou against LSU, or like you said, Zach, they come out strong and they take down Tennessee in front of a pseudo home crowd that is going to be mostly orange and white.
One more point there about the Auburn situation. You know, going into that Texas week, so many reporters, so much of the media was saying how much of a matchup nightmare it was for Vanderbilt. Just across the board, just didn't quite line up right. I would flip that on its head for this week. I think Vanderbilt just lines up right against Auburn. Auburn is going to struggle against Vanderbilt. Just the way Vanderbilt plays, the way its offense goes. We spoke about it with Hugh Freeze, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and so really quick, I wanted to ask you guys one more question before we move on to a little bit of men's and women's basketball preview and then close out. What do you guys think of the ticket situation? Are you positive on the policy of priority to certain attendees? Are you against it? And where do you go from here?
So I was just saying, this is kind of like a little tangent, but I personally prefer to watch games over TV. I have priority access, but when you have to micromanage, when you have to log onto the portal to go grab a ticket, it can become a lot. But going forward with the situation, they respected loyalty, and the people who were loyal got rewarded for their loyalty. So Absolutely. I think this incentivizes Vanderbilt students
to go to games.
Yeah, everyone to go to games because that's what you need. That's good. You need the environment. I haven't seen a Vanderbilt atmosphere like this in a long time. We're in class and students are, like we went to the game, and it's the highlight of people's weeks. And this is how it should be at every single institution. So, it's a good thing to see, and I think it's a great problem to have. Like Zach was saying earlier, it's definitely much better than the alternative of you having empty seats everywhere. So, it's a good problem, and I think that it'll be something similar going forward. I like it.
Errington just forgot to set his reminders. I was at the game, got that ticket early with the priority access. It was freaking awesome. I was in the front row. Amazing energy all around. I just think the fact that Vanderbilt is in this situation where, just to take you into the student experience here, you got to go all the way around to gate 3, which is back behind Hawkins Field by home plate. And you're getting your ID checked, your ticket checked, you're getting wristbands and stamps and getting
and a free T-shirt.
And a shirt. Filtered all the way to your seats, checked by cops and security officers everywhere. This is the experience. Some students are against it. This is awesome. People are finally going to the games. We're winning football games. They're having to limit the number of students. Vanderbilt has not been able to say that in so long. It was an incredible experience. I'm grateful to be here at a time where the team looks like this, and the student experience is so fun to go to games. And the vibe around campus and in class, wherever it is, there's teachers talking about it. Teachers that have never watched a football game before are talking about the Vandy football game. Fun time to be on campus.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think people complaining about having to pay for tickets is a little bit rich coming from Vanderbilt students because this is the only college campus in the SEC that gives all tickets to all sporting events for a complete $0 to its students. Everybody else, you look at Wisconsin, 90% of Wisconsin students don't even get tickets to the football game. They have to spend like $1,000 on season tickets. You got like Texas A&M, it's like $200 for season ticket pass for students. Like, if you have to spend $20 to buy it from another student for a game, it's not the end of the world. This is an SEC football school. Like, I don't want to say check your privilege, but check your privilege. Like,
So with that, with the South Carolina game coming up, it's certainly not going to have the excitement around it as the Texas game did. But should Vanderbilt give priority to those students who didn't get to go to the Texas game?
I don't think the Texas game should be considered when offering priority because there were people that wanted to go and literally couldn't go. So I think that you use a similar type of priority model.
But then it's the same group of students who was at the Texas game.
Yeah, but if there's less pressure and there's less desire for fans to go to the game, then there will be more tickets available on the back end of the non-priority.
Yeah, I think the South Carolina game inevitably will look different.
And also tickets will be cheaper on SeatGeek for students. That'll be like $40 instead of $200. With that said, we're going to talk a little bit about men's and women's basketball. Two very, very different teams, and it would take probably 3 hours for us to understand what's going on with the men's team because there are so many question marks. Whether Mark Byington's team, which brought in 10 transfers, 2 new freshmen, only kept J.Q. Roberts and Jordan Williams, just 2 players from last year's team. There's almost no continuity, and they've not had a ton of time to figure it out. So I think that you're going to see a lot of growing pains early on, and that's why you have a softer schedule to open the non-conference against Maryland, Eastern Shore. You start with Cal, but for the most part, Jackson State. Like mostly very easy matchups until you get into SEC, so they'll have time. And I think the biggest thing you're looking out for with this team is size. Kajani Wright was brought in from USC to be the starting center. He's out indefinitely with a non-basketball injury, so you've got Jalen Carey, who's 6'8", is probably going to be the stretch 5. He's more of a stretch 4. And then J.Q. Roberts is the only other 6'8" guy on the roster. So especially in the SEC, where you've got your dominant bigs, and we saw that with Liam Robbins a couple years ago, you're going to struggle inside the paint. And because of it, Vanderbilt's going to have to run an extra fast offense, extra Mark Byington, a lot of three-pointers, rely a lot on Jason Edwards and A.J. Hoggard, which should be a star duo in the backcourt. And then on the women's side, more question marks. A lot of people in the SEC media poll don't necessarily think the women are going to be great this year, had them finishing around 10. I think that's a little unfair to a team that just made a national or an NCAA tournament, a team that won a game in the first 4 before losing to Baylor in a tough matchup. And then they brought in a 5-star recruit, another solid recruit, and then Jane Nwaba and Leilani Kapinas, both really quality transfers, and you kept almost the entire team outside of Jordan Cambridge. So you've got almost your entire team, a lot of your productivity back with a nice supplement of transfers and freshmen, and a really great head coach in Shea Ralph. There's absolutely no reason to believe that this team would not also return to the NCAA tournament and be better than a first 4 team, finish in the top part of the SEC, perhaps even win a game or 2 in the NCAA tournament. And again, it's very early to say so, and it's hard to tell with the non-conference because, again, it's a lot of cupcake games when you're an SEC school. Women start with Lipscomb on Monday, and the men start with Maryland Eastern Shore on Monday, where the Vanderbilt University Concert Choir will be performing the national anthem. Shout out to our Vanderbilt University arts programs. Be there, be square. Should be a fun environment. Should be a fun season for both teams. One really good team and one team that's got a lot of question marks, but is going to run a fun, exciting offense. There's a lot to look forward to come basketball season on West End in Memorial Gymnasium. We'll see if Vanderbilt can recreate some of its Memorial magic from the past few years. With that said, I'm going to take us out for the week. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you all have a wonderful week. Go Dores.